First of all, I want to promise you that 0% of what I say today is going to be political, because this is not about politics. I'm going to ask you to hit pause for a minute. I'm going to ask you to just ask yourself a question. Who benefits if you react radically to violence? When violence occurs, especially when it hits close to home or it's in our backyard, our animal brain goes into overdrive, and that's what takes over. And when our animal brain takes over, the only thing we care about is survival. And that's why I felt like I had to say something about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. It hits at the intersection of everything I've been talking about on my channel. And if you're new, welcome. I am Megan Connor. I'm the host of the Midlife Revolution podcast. And this might seem like a departure from my normal content, but it's really not. Because when my own friends start calling for violence in reaction to an act of violence, I feel like I have to say something. And again, 0% political. So having said all of that, I do just want to share with you the breaking news that the individual who shot Charlie Kirk on Wednesday at the University of Utah at a rally has been apprehended. Please bear with me as my notes are just a little bit scattered, because I'm not normally the person to go live with a scoop like this, but I've been contemplating this ever since this happened on Wednesday, and I've assembled some things that I want to talk about. So the shooter has been identified as Tyler Robinson. He's 22. He was a University of Utah student. He had received a 4-year presidential scholarship to the University of Utah. And I don't want to talk yet about anything that anybody is saying about him, except to say that his father, who's a 27-year veteran of the sheriff's department, I believe in St. George, Utah, is the one who turned him in. Now, I know a lot of us probably have a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, things we want to say, and ways in which we want to react. But just based on the facts that I've already shared, some people's animal brain is already going into overdrive. So I want to just hit pause on that for a second. And I want to talk about Charlie Kirk. He was a husband. He was a father. He was a human being. And whether or not you like or appreciate the things that he said or the things that he stood for, he was just a man who was speaking at a university, at a political rally, where he should have felt relatively safe. Now, security probably wasn't as stringent as it should have been. And I just want to, just going to say, I 100% realize that just by talking about this, there are going to be people who unfollow without even listening to a word that I have to say, because they don't want me to get political. And that's why I started this video by saying 0% of what I say today is going to be political, because this is not about politics. It's about human beings. So that's why I'm asking you to hit pause on that impulse to cancel me and to hit the unsubscribe button. Just hit pause for a second. Let your critical thinking skills take over for a second. When this happened on Wednesday, there was, of course, as there always is with these shocking events, an explosion from many different directions of ideas, of thoughts, of words, and unfortunately, some of my own friends causing for violence, for more violence, and for more death in the answer to death and violence. And that to me is sad. And it makes it so that I want to have a bigger conversation, because let's just all stop and ask ourselves who benefits if we're at each other's throats? Who benefits if instead of stopping and thinking about this situation, we decide to radicalize? Who benefits if we live in a world of chaos? I've said this before, but I think it's even more important to say it today. We all want the same things. We human beings who live on this planet, doesn't matter what country we're from, it doesn't matter what ideology we follow, it doesn't matter what religion we are, and it sure as hell doesn't matter which political party we prefer. We all want peace and prosperity for ourselves and for our children, for the future of this world. All of us want that, which means that we're more alike than we are different. I like to talk about the idea that almost every single culture on the entire planet has a way of preparing chicken. In the southern United States, it's fried chicken. In Italy, it's chicken cacciatore. In Russia, it's chicken Kiev. Do I think chicken fajitas are better than chicken curry? Maybe. But it doesn't mean that I wish for the deaths of people who make it differently than I do. So on Wednesday at the Utah Valley University, and you're right, thank you. I mistakenly said University of Utah, and I will change that in my description and title as well. Thank you for the corrections. I appreciate corrections. I realize that I'm assembling this at the last minute, and sometimes I don't get things exactly right. But if I do make a mistake, I will correct it. I do my best to speak accurately, but I do sometimes get distracted and use the wrong word. So um, Utah Valley University on Wednesday afternoon, Charlie Kirk was murdered. And I use that word because the words that we use about this matter. I'm not going to say he was assassinated. I'm not going to say that he was a martyr, because those words incite more violence. And I think that instead of repeating what is handed to us, we need to start asking better questions. For those of you who don't know my history, I had multiple murders in my family, and the lies that were promulgated during that horrific tragedy were so disgusting to me that I really don't trust anyone anymore. I question everything now. So I ask myself all the time, how do you know? Where did this come from? What source is your information from? Who benefits if this information is true, and who benefits if the information is false? First and foremost, though, most of the time, when I hear something, I ask myself, does this make sense? Yesterday, law enforcement reported that they found a bolt action rifle, a 30-06, wrapped in a towel in a wooded area along the same line of travel that the shooter might have taken when they left the university. And I ask myself, does that make sense? Does it make sense that someone who just fired a fatal shot, who was literally running for their lives, would take the time to wrap the weapon in a towel and then discard it in the woods with no forethought? I mean, this was obviously pre-planned. Videos show this shooter on the roof of a building early on in the rally. So obviously, this wasn't just a crime of passion where somebody took out a gun and shot somebody. So does it make sense that the pre-laid plan was to discard the weapon in the woods, wrapped in a towel? There's a lot we don't know. And I'm just going to share with you some of the things of which I am aware. Now, that doesn't mean that it's accurate yet, because once again, how do we know? Where did the source of the information come from? And yesterday, when the pictures were released of who this potentially might be, underneath the caption of the picture, it said, "This is a picture taken from surveillance video that was yesterday on the campus prior to the rally." Well, how do we know? We trust law enforcement to a certain extent, but how do we know? And that's why I always just like to pause and wait for more information to come out. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to do today, because I only have a few minutes to get out the information that I do have. Now, there are a lot of Tyler Robinsons out there, but so far, from what I can tell, Tyler Robinson was a student at Utah Valley University. He also is reportedly Mormon. Now, this is just based on what's being spread over social media right now, so it may not be completely accurate. But social media reports have noticed that he had an upbringing in the heavily LDS area of St. George, Utah, which is in southern Utah. And that's where his family is described to have lived as part of the Mormon community. His father, a 27-year veteran of the sheriff's department in that area. If this information is accurate. Now, if it's not, whether it is or not, I'm going to be coming on later again today with an update as well. But I'll give you the information that I have right now. His family reportedly turned him into authorities after recognizing him in a surveillance video with involvement from their LDS bishop. Mainstream news outlets have not explicitly confirmed his personal religious affiliation, but the consensus from posts on different platforms and community discussions point to him being raised in a devout Mormon family. Some have said even that his father might have been a former leader in the Mormon church, which could mean anything from local leader to higher level local leader. I want to report just a couple of other things as well. Some people are saying that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk because he hated Charlie's opinions and thought Charlie was a fascist. Well, we don't know if that is true or not. Killing someone to silence their opposing views, especially if they're political views, is a fascist act. And again, whether or not you agree with the things that Charlie Kirk said or the things that he stood for, he was a person. He was a human being. He was a father. He was a husband. And killing someone because you disagree with what they say is never okay. And calling for further violence because you disagree with someone is also not okay. Again, I don't look at this as a political situation, and I want to keep asking the question of who benefits in this chaos. There are some posts and some reports, and I'm going to use that loosely, reports, that the shell casings or one of the shell casings was imprinted with the phrase, "Hey, fascist, catch." Now, that's pretty inflammatory. It makes for really great headlines, but we don't know for sure if it is true. I'm going to leave this unfollow up here because anybody who unfollows me because I'm talking about something that is in the news that has some underpinnings in politics has not been here for more than 5 minutes, because I said at the beginning of this video, this is not about political violence. This is about violence being instigated in our country by the people who benefit from it. And who is that? Well, it's the people who run the news cycle. It's the people who donate to both political parties because they win no matter who comes out on top. They win when people are killed. They win when people are not killed. The billionaires and multi-hundred millionaires that run our country and our political system are the ones who benefit, not you, not me, not the everyday normal human being. I posted a video on my channel earlier today by Chase Hughes, who's one of the experts on the behavior panel. And he's an expert in brainwashing. And one of the things that he says in the video is that it is a classic tactic of psychological manipulation, psychological operations, to get the two groups to stop talking to each other and to just radicalize into violence. That is textbook psychological operations right there. And that's why I'm asking for people to stop and have a conversation. Stop and think. There's some talk about the father who turned his son in. Some people are asking who in the world would turn in their own child. Well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that Tyler Robinson's father turned him in. I had a situation at one point in my parenting where I had to turn in a child for something where he was going to face some pretty severe consequences, and it sucked, and I hated every second of it. I second guessed it. I had people tell me that I did the wrong thing. People very close to me, his father for one, my mother for another. But think about the alternative. If somebody does something that is harmful and you don't turn them in, what's their incentive to stop doing what they're doing? And we see this in true crime cases all the time, where people want to help their loved ones cover something up because it's too embarrassing, it's too shameful to publicly face the consequences. Play this forward. Think of this down the line, what this father's going to have to go through, what this family's going to have to go through. Their name is now associated with an infamous act. It would have been easier to just secret him away somewhere. If any of you followed the Gabby Petito case, you know that the parents of her killer allegedly helped their child hide, not giving any answers to the family members. Well, which is better? Are you going to enable the person who did the harmful act, or are you going to hold them accountable? Because sometimes somebody's so deep down into their own ideology that they really believe that what they're doing is not harmful. And so if you don't hold them accountable, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. They're going to continue on the same radical path that they've been on. The same thing happened in my family's case. If anybody had had the wherewithal to hold Lori and Alex accountable instead of calling Alex a hero for shooting his brother-in-law, we might have at least 3 other people who would still be alive at this point. So yeah, it sucks to have to hold somebody accountable when you know the consequences are going to be terrible for them. And I can tell you, my son hated me for a while. And I don't blame him. because in his view, I was the source of his pain and I was the source of the consequences that he received. But over time, as we continued to talk with each other, we were able to come to the realization that we both wanted the same things. We both wanted him to have a successful and happy life. In the pursuit of that, I did the best that I could as a mother to make the choice that I thought was right at the time. And even though I second guessed myself, I don't regret it. I regret the fallout of it, but I don't regret holding him accountable. Let's talk about for a second what else happened on Wednesday. Whenever there's big things going on over here, you can guarantee there's something going on over there that they don't want you to see. There's another school shooting on Wednesday. As far as I know, there were 2 children who were taken to the hospital. One was in stable condition, the other in critical condition, and the shooter themselves took their own life. In addition, there was a list released of who was at Epstein's 50th birthday party. There's some information that has come out about different people that have signed that book, prominent political figures. Not only that, but just if we stop for a second, if we pause for a second and we think about what happens if we don't engage with the most radical story that's happening, what happens? We talk to each other. I think I've shared before that my partner and I disagree on a wide variety of issues. We disagree politically. I don't affiliate with a particular political party because my views are based on what I think is best for human beings. And so without talking about what I believe politically, I'll just say, when this shooting happened, it could have dissolved into a very predictable pattern of one person on one side and one person on the other side, and there could have been argument. Instead, what we both said was, how awful, how tragic, how disgusting, how scary. We talked about how we felt about a life being taken, not about the ideology that one person or the other might have represented. Because in my opinion, the taking of a life is always wrong unless there is a threat right here in your face and you're going to die. My personal opinion. I would protect myself and my family if there was an imminent threat to my life. But I would never incite or enact violence against somebody because I disagree with their ideology, even if their ideology is threatening to my way of life, even if they believe in things that I find abhorrent. The right to speak freely is a unique right in this country. And even if I disagree with what someone says, I'm going to defend their right to say it, and their right to say it without the threat of physical harm, without the threat of their life being taken. And now I just have a couple of other things that I want to share with you. The possibility that this individual could be Mormon doesn't mean anything about the overall LDS Church. I've had a lot of conversations on my channel about the LDS Church and the harms that I believe are inherent in its culture. And I do believe that the culture of the LDS Church makes a space for this kind of radicalization. But it's not the church's fault that this individual did this thing. The fact that this individual may have been raised in a conservative Mormon home may have had something to do with his motivations, but I want to hear the actual words of this individual. I don't want to listen to what other people are saying about him. I want to listen to what he says, and I want to listen to how he says it. And we might not ever hear from him. We might not ever get that chance, because I guarantee you this case is going to be fast-tracked and that justice is going to be swift. And it's possible, just like Brian Kohberger, we might never get to know exactly what happened or exactly what motivated it. But you can be certain that plenty of other people will put words in his mouth, and plenty of other people will label him and say what they think that he thought. Please consume that with a healthy dose of skepticism. Please consume it considering the source it comes from and what their agenda may be. One of the saddest things that I saw on Wednesday, and I think if you've watched any of the video, you've seen this image as well, of a man in the audience cheering after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. That reaction is what should scare us more than anything else. We should never celebrate the death of an individual person, even when we think they're a terrible person. Hitler, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, did we celebrate when those people died? I hope not. Because when a life is lost, it's tragic and it's sad. And I believe their lives were lost long before they died. Their lives were lost when they decided it was okay to kill people over what they believed. And there are too many people in our country right now who are making that same shift and that same decision in the wake of this shooting. There are some people right now who have changed from being passionate about an ideal to believing that it's okay to take somebody's life. There are groups right now who are weaponizing, who are militarizing, who are saying it's time, enough is enough. It's time for us to take up arms in defense of what we believe. Please pause. That's the moment. That's the linchpin. The second you decide that it's okay to take somebody else's life because of something they did to someone else, you've lost. You've lost your life. You've lost your future. You've lost your ability to think critically. I wish that I had readily available some of the quotes from that Chase Hughes video that I posted early, because what he said was very powerful. But the ideas are basically that anything that is breeding in the dark is harmful. And when we have the courage to step into the light and to confront harmful ideology, that's when humanity benefits. This is a moment in our country where courage is necessary. And right now, the courageous thing to do is to probably do nothing. It's really, really easy to pick up a weapon, whether it's a verbal weapon or an actual weapon, and go try and stand on a line. It's far more courageous to do nothing, to stop and to think and to consider other ideas that are not your own. When we stop listening to each other and when we stop talking to each other, that's what these powerful people and organizations want. because they know that if we're talking to each other face to face, if it's just you and me, we're far more likely to come to an understanding of each other than if we're behind a screen typing. Think about it. When you get in your car and you get on the freeway and somebody cuts you off, how easy is it for you to call them a name or an epithet or to dehumanize them? But how would you feel if you were broken down on the side of the road or you had an accident and that same person who cut you off stopped to help you? How would you feel then? Thank you, Heather. An idea has to be able to live in the sunlight or it thrives in the shadows. If you haven't watched that Chase Hughes video, go watch it. It's smart, it's important, and it's exactly where I want to be right now. I want to tell you some of the things that I did on Wednesday. Wednesday and Thursday were tough days for me. Wednesday, um, I went and did some things with the people that I love, and I didn't really know what was going on until after it had happened, and I started to listen to the different reports that were coming out. And yesterday, I spent the entire day doing things for my kids. I have 6 children. Only 2 of them live here at home with me, but I talked to every single one of them yesterday. And that's not typical because we're all so busy. But my oldest daughter wanted some advice about bills. My oldest son just bought a new car. He was super excited. My next daughter was having a medical problem I needed to help her with. My next daughter, I just touched base with because I wanted to know if she was okay. My next son had some logistical things to deal with, a situation that had procrastinated and needed cleaning up. And my youngest daughter, I printed out pictures to go decorate her locker because tonight is her homecoming game that she's performing in. And I also sat with my partner and his children through some difficult stuff yesterday. That's real life. And all the while, I was consuming information that was being put out by many different sources about what happened yesterday. And what was really, really sad to me was to get into a group chat and hear some of my friends talking about more violence. And that made me so sad that I couldn't pass up. Now that the person has been apprehended, I wanted to talk about it in these terms. Now I have to go and help some people learn how to sing better. What a beautiful thing. Yesterday was September 11th. That was not lost on me. That day always causes me a lot of reflection and sorrow over the thousands of people who lost their lives because some other people don't like the way we do things in this country. Why? Most of the time, hatred is fueled by fear. And fear is surface level. There's always something underneath that fear. Most of the time, we're afraid that our way of life is going to be taken from us. Most of the time, we're afraid that something in our life is going to radically change and we're not going to be able to handle it. Most of the time, we're afraid that somebody's idea or somebody's actions are going to make life harder for us or for our children or for the people that we love. Most of the time, that's all we're afraid of. And that fear is not right here waving a gun in my face. It's scary. It makes me worried about the future, about how I'm going to provide for my family. And that's where our fear lives for most of us. How am I going to take care of my family if XYZ happens? At 22 years old, this kid was so scared about his future that he believed he needed to silence the voice of the person he perceived was threatening his future. And that makes me incredibly sad. It makes me sad for him. It also makes me sad for anybody else who feels that way. Because again, whether or not you agree with what Charlie Kirk said or whatever you think of him as a human being, he still was a human being. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over. He was a husband, he was a father, he was a human being. Now, I've heard a few of the things that he's said, and I don't like a lot of them. But I would never consider the fact that because we disagree, he needs to die and I deserve to live. Who gets to make that choice? Not us. Both of the people involved in this shooting, and I'm going to narrow it down to two: the shooter and Charlie Kirk. Both of those people had families who loved and cared about them. It's a tragedy for both of those people. But what would be even worse is if the rest of us devolve into violence too. And if the rest of us join the conversation of hatred and chaos too. Another thing that Chase Hughes said in his video is if even one person refuses to engage in this perpetuation of hatred and violence and rhetoric, it would make a difference. And if even 10 people would walk away from those discussions where nothing gets solved and walk away from screaming at each other instead of listening to each other, if just 10 people would do it, it would make a big difference. Right now, there are only 230 people watching this video. A bunch of them just bailed. But if all of you would make a decision right now to just pause the conversation and to stop engaging in the chaos for just a little while longer. Let's just wait a little while longer until we have more information. Let's wait a little while longer until we have more answers, until we have better answers that come from sources of people that we know we can trust. I don't trust very many people. I don't trust very many sources. But what I do trust is my own ability to think critically and to gather information from a lot of different places, including the places I disagree with, because I want to hear what's being said. If we just pause to think critically for a little while longer, then we have won, and the people inciting the chaos have lost. How is it that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Well, the rich band together to create chaos among the poor. They get us to hate each other, they get us to dehumanize each other, and they get us to believe that violence is the only answer. Then they keep cashing their checks, and the money actually comes from us. I have more to say, but for right now, I need to take some more time to gather my thoughts and to gather more information. This is an issue I'm going to continue to report on because I think we are at a critical moment in our country and in the course of humanity where our lives and our livelihoods are being threatened by ideas and by people who want us to live in chaos. I appreciate you being here with me to just give you some of my initial thoughts. It's not as polished as it normally is. Excuse me. But more is to come. And I will continue to gather information for you and present it without a political lens, because I believe there's a way to have this conversation without that. And I think it's the only way to have the conversation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this message, please share it with them. Please share Chase Hughes' video with them, because his is far more articulate and far more important than what I have to say. You can find his video posted on the main channel page of my channel here on YouTube. And please share his video with everybody you know that needs to hear it. Thank you, for Crash, for this. They want us to be divided. Let's not let it happen. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to end how I began. We have more in common than we do different. I'm just a mom who wants a beautiful future for my kids. And I think we all want the same thing. Please take good care of yourself.